At the climax of the battle for the fate of the spiritual world, two beings of immense power faced off in a confrontation that would go down in Bleach's history. On one side, Yhwach, the feared Quincy emperor with the ability to shape the future itself. On the other, Ichibei, the mighty monk who calls the real name, ancient guardian of the Soul Society, wielding a power capable of erasing and rewriting reality itself. Today, you're going to learn all about the powers of his Zanpakuto Ichimonji, his backstory, his battle against the Quincy emperor, and understand how the most powerful Shinigami was defeated in the most unbelievable way. This video is packed full of details just the way you like it, so if you're curious about today's topic, go ahead and unleash your Getsuga Tensho on the like button, and make sure you're subscribed with the bell turned on so you won't miss the upcoming videos. Ichibei received the title Monk who calls the real name from the Soul King. He was also the first person to name everything that existed in the Soul Society, including the Zanpakuto, Shikai, and Bankai. At some point in the past, Ichibei was the first Shinigami to obtain an evolved form of his Zanpakuto, which was not yet known as Bankai, but as Shinuchi. More than 1,000 years before the events of Bleach, Yhwach had been confronted and defeated by Ichibei and the Royal Guard during a previous attempt to seize power. During that confrontation, Ichibei used the power of the left arm of the Soul King, which he had obtained, to seal Yhwach's almighty ability, stripping him of his power to foresee and alter futures. After that defeat, Yhwach remained dormant for centuries, and the Almighty stayed sealed, making him unable to use his ultimate ability until then. Ichibei withdrew, proclaiming that Yhwach would never be able to use the Almighty until his own death, and told him to live a modest life until then. Now, talking about his powers, Ichibei's Zanpakuto, named Ichimonji, is one of the most powerful in the Bleach universe. As the leader of the Zero Division, Ichibei possesses a Zanpakuto that reflects his power over names and concepts, allowing him to manipulate the essence of things by redefining their names. Ichibei's Shikai is activated with the command Blacken, and its materialized form is a giant calligraphy brush. When in its Shikai form, Ichimonji has the unique ability to manipulate black ink and the power to cut and eliminate the name of anything it touches. This ability grants Ichibei absolute control over his opponent's existence. Now, let's talk a bit about the abilities of his Shikai. First, we have the name Severing. When Ichimonji strikes an opponent, the ink that spreads removes the name of any part of the body it touches. For example, if he cuts an opponent's arm, the affected part loses its name, and, consequently, all the power and meaning that name represents. As a result, the opponent loses half the strength or abilities associated with that body part. Second, the power of black. The ink generated by the Shikai can spread over large areas, and anything touched by it loses its name and powers. The ink is not just a physical substance, but a manifestation of the concept that Ichibei represents, allowing him to control the very essence of the things that come into contact with it. And the most powerful skill is the slaughterous mausoleum of halted reincarnation. Ichibei gathers a massive amount of darkness around him and concentrates it into a cup from which he drinks. After reciting an incantation, he creates a large mausoleum with a gate in front, erected over shattered gravestones, all formed from the darkness he manipulated. This technique absorbs all the darkness within the opponent, including their flesh, blood, and bones, leaving nothing behind. The destruction is so complete that the victim will not even be able to reincarnate. The darkness in this attack is not just a physical substance, but it represents the concept of total darkness. Now let's talk about Ichibei's Bankai, called Shirafude Ichimonji, which means White Brush 1 written character. Unlike many other Bankais that only expand or amplify the Shikai's powers, Shirafude Ichimonji elevates Ichibei's control over names and concepts to a divine level. With Shirafude Ichimonji, Ichibei can not only erase the names of things but also completely rewrite them. Once his opponent or anything is struck by the white ink, Ichibei has the power to rename that entity, altering its essence and function according to the new name he chooses. For instance, he can turn an enemy into something as insignificant as an ant by redefining their name to Black Ant, causing the target to become as weak and vulnerable as an actual ant. Since the Bankai allows Ichibei to alter the identity and essence of anything he strikes, it gives him absolute control over his opponent's fate. When he assigns a new name, it is not merely symbolic. The target effectively transforms into everything that name represents. It's an ability that transcends the idea of physical strength, as it deals with the very concept of existence. The power of Ichimonji and Shirafude Ichimonji symbolizes Ichibei's role as the monk who calls the true name, as he was the first to name all things in the Soul Society, including the concepts of Zanpakuto, Shikai, and Bankai. His Zanpakuto represents his absolute power over language, identity, and destiny. destiny, making him one of the most dangerous and powerful characters in Bleach. In summary, Ichibei's Shikai can cut and erase the name and power of anything it touches, while his Bankai goes beyond, allowing him to completely rewrite the name and essence of his opponent, altering their existence according to the new name he assigns. And now the moment of battle. Ichibei versus Yhwach. 1,000 years have passed, and the Quincy army invades the Soul Society once again. Yhwach manages to reach the Soul King's palace with the aim of eliminating him, as he is the main pillar balancing the existence of the three worlds. When Yhwach, the Quincy Emperor, finally arrives at the Soul King's palace, Ichibei immediately senses his presence and uses the ideogram for hidden to conceal the palace from the Quincy's view, demonstrating his ability to manipulate names and concepts with his own calligraphy. In an instant, Yhwach appears before Ichibei, confidently asking whether the royal guard will allow him to pass. Calmly, Ichibei stands up and, with a smile, warns Yhwach not to use his name so casually, threatening that his voice might fail. With a gesture, Ichibei draws a line on the ground and declares that this will be the place where he kills Yhwach. Upon pronouncing Ichibei's name again, a massive black hand manifests and forcefully pushes Yhwach out of the palace. This technique, called Senritsu Tensho, allows Ichibei to manifest a gigantic spiritual limb that pushes his opponents with extraordinary force, capable of throwing them a 1,000 rai away, 2,440 miles. Ichibei then appears next to Yhwach and explains that the hand will keep pushing him, but Yhwach quickly recovers, propelling himself back toward the palace. Realizing that his opponent is no ordinary foe, Ichibei decides to take the battle seriously and draws his large brush, a weapon resembling a giant calligraphy brush. Yhwach prepares for the fight, and the two clash in a power struggle, with Ichibei displaying a satisfied expression. When Yhwach tries to block Ichibei's brush strike, Ichibei reveals that his weapon, called Ichimonji, can cut the names of things it touches. In one motion, he cuts Yhwach's arm and declares that the arm's name is now just R, which reduces its physical capabilities by half. For Ichibei, cutting the name of something means cutting its power and essence. However, Yhwach is not easily defeated. Enraged, he manifests reishi pillars and launches them at Ichibei. In response, Ichibei uses Bakudu number 62 to block the attack, firing a series of light rods that form a barrier. Still, Yhwach activates his defensive ability, creating a barrier around his body that absorbs and destroys everything around him. Ichibei quickly counters, using a technique from his own arsenal that breaks through Yhwach's defense, grabbing him by the neck. At this moment, Ichibei decides to show the true power of his Zanpakuto, declaring the name Ichimonji. When Yhwach sees the Shikai's appearance, he expresses confusion, and Ichibei asks if he can tell the difference between a sword and a brush. With a single stroke, Ichibei releases a wave of ink over Yhwach, explaining that anything covered by this ink loses its name and power. Yhwach, now drenched in ink, realizes that he can't remember the name of his own sword, losing a crucial part of his identity and strength. When Yhwach attempts to steal Ichibei's power with the Sanct Altar, an ability that allows him to take his opponent's powers, Ichibei reveals that his energy cannot be stolen, because Ichimonji not only controls darkness, but also retains its power for itself. Seeing that Yhwach continues to resist, Ichibei decides to unleash his most powerful form, the Bankai, Shirafude Ichimonji. He explains that this form allows him to rename anything his ink touches, thereby redefining the existence of his target. With a touch, Ichibei declares that Yhwach's new name will be Black Ant, decreeing that his life will be as short as that of an ant. Manifesting a giant foot, Ichibei attempts to crush Yhwach, believing that he has finally won. However, Yhwach had yet to use his trump card. With a smile, he rises and activates the Almighty, a power that allows him to see and alter all possible futures. He breaks free from Ichibei's ink and regains his name and power, completely surprising the monk. Even in the face of the Almighty, Ichibei tries to use his final power, Futen Taisatsuryo, which would use the darkness on Yhwach's body to erase him completely, preventing his reincarnation. Nevertheless, with the absolute power of the Almighty, Yhwach simply nullifies Ichibei's attack and delivers a devastating blow, obliterating the monk's torso. As Ichibei's head falls to the ground, Yhwach remarks that Ichibei was right about dying in 3 steps. Now, let's get into the questions. How did Yhwach recover the Almighty? He regained his ability during his battle with Ichibei through a process tied to the very nature of his powers and his status as the most powerful Quincy. The Almighty isn't just a technique or a common ability, it's the ultimate expression of Yhwach's power as the father of all Quincy and the son of the Soul King. When pressed by Ichibei and struck by the Shirafude Ichimonji technique, Yhwach's true power began to awaken once again. This happened because the Almighty is a manifestation of his true power, and as Yhwach was approaching the Soul King and his goal of becoming the absolute ruler of the universe, his powers fully returned. Yhwach then declared that his true power cannot be sealed or permanently nullified, as it is part of his very essence and identity. Upon unleashing the Almighty, he regained the ability to see and modify all possible futures, making him immune to any attack or ability directed at him. In other words, Yhwach was able to recover the Almighty because Ichibei's seal was only temporary, and Yhwach's true power was always destined to awaken as he drew closer to the Soul King and the realization of his objectives. How did Yhwach defeat Ichibei? Yhwach managed to defeat and obliterate Ichibei by using the power of the Almighty. After Ichibei used his Bankai, Shirafude Ichimonji, to rename Yhwach as Black Ant, he believed the victory was secured. However, Yhwach activated the Almighty, which not only allowed him to see all events that would happen from that point onward, but also alter anything that could affect him. In practice, it was as if Yhwach could jump between timelines, accessing one where he wasn't struck by Ichibei's Bankai. That's why with the Almighty, he was able to completely nullify the effects of Ichibei's Bankai. And by regaining his power and full mastery of the Almighty, Yhwach concentrated a massive amount of energy in his hand and launched a devastating attack against Ichibei, causing his body to explode with a simple energy blast. The Almighty of Yhwach is so absolute that none of Ichibei's powers, including name manipulation and his ink, could affect him once the ability was activated. How was Ichibei able to revive? Even after being completely defeated, Ichibei managed to survive thanks to his connection with the spiritual world and his unique ability to manipulate names and concepts. In the moment when Ichibei was about to die, he used his last strength to telepathically communicate with Ichigo, who was arriving at the Soul King's palace. Ichibei asked Ichigo to call him by his name, which allowed him to absorb a portion of Ichigo's spiritual energy. When Ichigo said his name, Ichibei was able to extract that energy and use it to start his regeneration, albeit in a limited way. With his ability to manipulate names, it's as if Ichibei can literally rewrite his own body. He just needs the luck of someone he can telepathically reach for this request. Therefore, Ichibei's defeat at Yhwach's hands was only caused by the supremacy of the Almighty, which nullified all the monk's powers and abilities. However, Ichibei's regeneration was possible thanks to his connection with spiritual energy and his ability to recover when called by his name. So, did you like the video? I think we covered everything about the most powerful Shinigami up to that point. Personally, one of my favorite abilities in Bleach, and even though he was defeated, that doesn't take away from the monk's incredible presence. If you made it to the end, enjoyed the video, and aren't subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that like button, double check your subscription, leave your feedback in the comments, and suggest themes for future videos. Alright?